Hello guys, this is Minecraft01 here, back with another reading of a fan fiction, and we will be reading Rocket to Insanity, Fall of the Apple Family. And this is probably not a good idea to be reading when I'm about to go to bed in a bit. So I'll be happy to have nightmares. Not really. Let's read it. There is 11 chapters, and let's see, how many words does it have in total? 11,039 words in total are in this one story. So the chapters aren't very long, so I can about say a few, maybe up to 2 to 3 chapters. So let's read this description. With Pinkie Pie's brutal murder, the whole of Equestria is on high alert, with no clues leading to who did it. It begins to look like Pinkie's killer will never be found. Rainbow Dash begins to find herself losing control both mentally and physically, as Applejack tries to confront Rainbow Dash, but she unintentionally becomes her target. I think that should say it becomes her target, because it says becomes her target. So I already see a failure in spelling right there. So let's start reading. Chapter 1, Grieving. The land of Equestria was utterly devastated by the sudden loss of its #1 party pony, Pinkie Pie. Her laughter, her smile, and her lovable personality were just gone. Just like that. An empty void that could never be filled. The very notion that any pony could take the life of such loving and happy pony was sickening for everyone. Her funeral wasn't traditional send-off. Every pony was dressed in bright colors. The rooms were in a forest of brightly colored balloons bouncing off the ceiling, and bands playing mostly lively jazz music to match. It wasn't subtle. It didn't look anything like a funeral, but it was what Pinkie Pie would have wanted. When it was time to bury Pinkie Pie, her friends stood by a large yet colorful coffin. Twilight was stood next to Spike. Both were crying into each other's shoulders. Applejack was staring into the coffin, barely able to believe the tragedy that had befallen her pink friend. Fluttershy stood, her mind in a devastating mix of sadness and anger, freely letting out her tears flow down her face. Rarity was resting her head on the coffin, openly mourning, tears soaking up her mascara and dropping into her coat, and there stood at a far end of the coffin, looking at Pinkie Pie's face, was the Pegasus who did it. No pony had found out who killed Pinkie Pie. With no evidence in the scene leading to any pony, it was almost impossible to pinpoint a culprit. The word murder hadn't even been mentioned in Equestria for hundreds of years. Nobody was prepared for such a cold-blooded attack due to Equestria's peaceful nature, and the pain shook the hearts of every pony in the country. Applejack walked towards the coffin and placed her hooves down on it. The image of her usually happy friend, so lifeless and completely broke the earth pony, causing tears to stream down her face. Applejack put her head in her hooves and sobbed out loud. The truth of what happened to had finally sunk in. Twilight slowly walked away from Spike and up towards Applejack. She's gone, Applejack croaked, lifting her head from her hooves and looking at Twilight, tears still flowing from her eyes. I can't believe she's gone. I can't believe she's gone. Twilight rested a hoof on Applejack's shoulder and brought her head onto her chest, trying her best to comfort the distraught pony. Rainbow Dash could feel the walls closing in on her. A drop of sweat fell off her brow and landed on the hoof, making her jump. All she could feel was the panic that experienced on that fateful day, the day she killed her best friend. Then the voices started. They're watching you. Rainbow Dash jolted back, her eyes widened and her pupils dilated. She could feel her whole body shiver as the pain crept slowly back into her already fragile mind. You do it, you know. You can kill them all. Shut up. Rainbow Dash tried to keep her voice down, not knowing how the other ponies would react if they heard the blue Pegasus talking to herself. Rainbow Dash began to twitch her legs, looking for somewhere to run. Kill them, or they will kill you. Shut up. Rainbow Dash said in both anger and fear. A few ponies glanced over their shoulder to look, but soon carried on with their conversations. The voices just kept screaming, laughing, and mocking. They didn't stop, and neither did the guilt consumed her grief. Rainbow Dash was starting to feel lightheaded. She could feel the anger and adulter hate fill the blood that was coursing through her veins. On a side note, I'd like to say, this sounds like something you'd refer to Discord, but worse. Like a worse version of Discord. Good. I don't know why. I just thought of that as I was reading. The first thing that came to my mind was Discord. So, let's keep on reading. Kill them. Kill them. Kill them. Rainbow Dash couldn't take it. Not now. She started to beat her head with her hoof. The voices didn't stop. They just kept shouting, screaming and laughing. The bruises from her previous endeavors were pounded as she tried desperately to force the sick monster out of her head. She continued to hit herself over the head, breathing heavily, until she finally collapsed onto the floor, exhausted. There was a dead silence. As she started to regain consciousness, and a dull ringing started to pinch her ears. The voices continued to swirl around in her mind. She just started to cry tears of despair as she once again found herself slipping away into the darkness. Just then, she sees an orange blur walking towards her. Rainbow? Said the distorted voice. Rainbow could only tell that it was Applejack. Her vision cleared as she looked at the blooming green eyes staring at her, highlighted with fresh tears. Rainbow Dash shook her head, trying to regain her composure, before slowly standing up. One thing I'd also like to say, since when the hell were Applejack's eyes green? It's probably just me right now thinking of something else, what the other ponies' eyes are like. But I could probably just tell right now that they're not green. Oh, wait, maybe they are. Never mind. It's just because when I think of their eyes, I think of the magenta colors as all the other ponies. Like Twilight has purple, and then they just seem more of the purplish color, most of the ponies' eyes. So that's why I thought they were green, where they weren't green. So let's keep on reading. You okay, honey? Rainbow Jazz. Did I almost say Rainbow Jazz? Sorry, I'm failing right here. Okay, just checking how long I've been recording. Now to find where I was. Oh, there we go. Rainbow Dash looked around. No pony else was watching. She sighed in relief. The last thing she needed now was to make a scene. You're hurt. Are you okay? Applejack said, her voice brimming with concern. It wasn't always odd to see Rainbow Dash with a few cuts and bruises, being the daredevil she was, but this time it was different. Applejack had never seen Rainbow Dash this roughed up outside of a hospital. I'm fine, Rainbow Dash muttered. Just leave me alone. She could only stare at the floor, unable to look her friend in the eyes after the atrocity she had committed. Suddenly, she felt the voices start to seep back into her mind, trying to manipulate her into painting the ones she loved further. Oh no. Oh no. Rainbow Dash began to panic. She could only feel her muscles burning under her skin. Suddenly, she felt a strange sensation, and looked up to see Applejack grabbing her tight embrace. Rainbow Dash gasped as she felt another pony warmth for the first time in weeks. But she was scared, not knowing what the voices in her head were going to make her do. Just then, she knows! The voice barked at her like a wild dog. Rainbow Dash threw the earth pony and began to look around the room for somewhere to run. The loud thump that echoed through the room caught everyone's attention. Rainbow Dash was now frantically trying to find a way out of the mess she could have created. Feeling the gaze of every pony in the room cut into her like daggers, she knew it was only a matter of seconds before her inner demons forced her to do something she would regret again. She let out an ear-shattering shriek before running out of reception, leaving Applejack on the floor by herself. What did you do? She sniffed. Was it something I said? Oh, whoops. Before she could run after Rainbow Dash, the room fell silent. Applejack looked to see the Princess of the Equestria had entered the reception area. Despite what had happened, Princess Celestia still stood proud as she looked across the room. Ponies of Equestria, we are gladly here today to pay our respects to our beloved Pinkie Pie, our element of laughter. She was always a mare who could brighten the darkest of our days. She would bring happiness into our hearts and would always put every pony else first. The princess was beginning to crack. No pony had ever seen her this upset. A tear rolled down her cheek, landing on the floor with an audible splash, sending a chill down every pony's spine. The princess frowned and then spoke with a stern tone. Hear me when I say I will never tire till this heartless killer is brought to justice, till Pinkie Pie can rest in peace, till the land of Equestria can live in harmony once again. Princess Celestia gently wiped the itching tear from her cheek, before turning back to her audience, speaking once again with a delicate and soft voice. I thank you every pony for attending this ceremony, but I am afraid I must go. Thank you. Okay, that was the end of chapter 1. Let's mark that as red. It's already done it for me. Okay. Chapter 2, A Friend in Need. Okay. Here we go. Rainbow Dash staggered through the muddy depths of the Everfree Forest. Her wings were numb. Her eyes were sore with tears, and her mane was mad to her head with sweat. She stopped at the next lake she found. Slowly diving and landing on the muddy ground, she rocked from side to side, desperately trying to ignore the merciless screams infesting her. She started breaking down into tears, unable to fight the evil barrage attacking her mind. Hiccups started to engulf her already sore throat, causing the explosion of pain with each one. She had reached her limit. She couldn't take any more. They know. They all know. Please, just go away. Kill. No. Kill. No. Kill them all. No. Kill them now. She knew no pony could hear her, so she screamed as loud and as hard as her lungs would allow her, trying to relieve all pain that had built up inside her over the past few hours. Her screams echoed through the hollow trees around her, complementing the sheer volume of the strangled cry. She screamed and screamed for as long as she could, before she could no longer stand the excruciating pain that engulfed her throat. She took a deep breath and it collapsed onto the floor, her legs unable to cope with the pain circulating throughout her body. Laying on her side, barely conscious, she looked into her reflection in the water, a fragile blue Pegasus staring back at her. It was still her, the least one glimmer of hope the poor Pegasus had, but for how long? She stared at herself with barely enough energy to breathe. Just then, for a split second, she saw Applejack in the reflection of the water. Rainbow Jack shrieked as she saw the gruesome images of Applejack stood over her, equipped with a large body knife with an insane grin spread out across her face. Rainbow Dash recognized this grin. It was the grin she wore when she broke down and murdered Pinkie Pie. Rainbow Dash quickly darted her eyes across the forest, but no pony else there. And she looked back into the water. At the first, there was nothing, but as she started into the dirty water, some pony began to form in front of her. No, not some pony. She knew who it was. It was herself, staring back at her with a mad smile and an otherworldly blackness booming with her eyes. Rainbow Dash recoiled at the sight, fear grasping heart. Okay, a third side note is I want to know who would think of, like, how would you get, like, the whole, how it started with, the first Rocket Insanity. How do you get that from reading one Cupcake? 'Cause I can see how, like, the story, it kind of goes with it, the story. How how it's a nightmare, but